are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Okay, we're good. All right, sorry everybody. Welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have everybody here on this January 2nd of 2024. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that, let's get right into what we are going to talk about for today. So starting off the show, we're going to talk about what happened in the Lions-Cowboys game. So we'll recap that game and talk about the wild ending to that game. In the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Eagles being upset by the Cardinals, and just they continue to struggle. Even though they won on Christmas, obviously losing this game to the Cardinals really hurt their chances of the division and the 1 seed. So we'll get into that. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about the big weekend for the Harbaugh brothers. The Ravens' big win over the Dolphins this weekend, as well as yesterday, Michigan defeating Alabama to advance to the national championship. So we'll talk about that. And then we will recap the rest of the games from this weekend as well, and talk about Texas and Washington as well, the wild ending to that game too. There were a lot of good games this weekend. I apologize in the beginning. I didn't realize that my mic was unplugged. And there was one time where I basically went pretty much an entire show, almost an entire show, without realizing that it was unplugged. And then it was I was told that there was no audio, and I didn't realize that the levels on the bottom weren't moving. And I noticed that right away, and I looked and I saw that I didn't plug in the mic. So, but we were able to catch it. Everything's good. And so with that, let's get right into the... Well, first off, I just want to say I hope everybody had a good holiday weekend, a good New Year's weekend. Hope everybody spent that, spent some time with family and friends to celebrate the new year 2024. I can't believe it. So, but yeah, we're ready to rock and roll now here. We're going into the final week of the regular season in the NFL, and we have the matchup for the national championship. So. We're moving right along here. But yeah, let's get right into this game now here. So the Lions and the Cowboys. So this was a standalone game on Saturday, obviously, Saturday night. The Cowboys were honoring Jimmy Johnson, inducting him into the Cowboys Ring of Honor, which is something that has been talked about for a while, but finally, it happened. So as a Giant fan, congratulations to him. I mean, I remember watching the the Packers Seahawks game, from a few years ago in the playoffs, and that was when they inducted him into the Hall of Fame, And yeah, it was really an emotional moment. And because I've grown up watching, you know, him and all the Fox guys, every Sunday watching them. And so I mean, obviously I wasn't around when during the '90s with the Cowboys winning all those championships. But that was an emotional moment, and that was one step, and now he's finally in the Cowboys Ring of Honor. So congratulations to him. But yeah, with this game though, on Saturday, a big controversy at the end of the game, which we'll get into. So the Cowboys actually ended up winning this game 20-19. Not as much scoring in this game as I thought there was going to be. It didn't seem like anybody wanted to win this game, really. So the Lions, they got things started with an 11-play, 52-yard drive to kick a field goal. Michael Badgley, the money badger, 41-yard field goal to put the Lions up 3-0. Right, that's what they call him, the money badger. Right. Then Dak Prescott threw an interception. The Cowboys were driving. Dak Prescott threw an interception. It was intended for CeeDee Lamb. The Lions punted. Then the Cowboys, Dak Prescott on 3rd and 13 just heaved up a pass to CeeDee Lamb, and there was no safety help. There was one-on-one coverage, and CeeDee Lamb beat it. 92-yard touchdown. That put them up 7-3. And I thought, yeah, the Cowboys are going to blow out the Lions after that. But, not really. Then there were punts. Then Jared Goff threw a pick. I think that was the one that was on like the screen pass that they were trying to set up. And then the Cowboys fumbled. CeeDee Lamb fumbled. And then the Lions turned it over on downs. Both teams punted. So, yeah, it was 7-3 at the half. So, yeah, not a lot of scoring in this game. Then start the third quarter off. The Cowboys punted. Lions scored a touchdown. They went 13 plays, 74 yards down the field to put them up 10-7. And I think that was a David Montgomery touchdown from 3 yards out. And the Cowboys answered with a field goal. Brandon Aubrey, who's had a great rookie season, a 51-yard field goal. Then Michael Badgley kicked a 30-yard field goal on the Lions' next drive. So that put them up 13-10. Cowboys scored a touchdown. That was to Brandon Cooks. Dak Prescott to Brandon Cooks from 8 yards out. Both teams punted. Then Jared Goff threw an interception. And then the Cowboys kicked a field goal to put them up 20-13. Now, what I don't understand is, and I know a lot of people say the same thing, is why didn't they just run the ball? Because they ended up wasting the clock because Dak Prescott heaved the ball out of bounds. The Lions didn't have any timeouts left. So you could have just I think they had one, but still, you could have had them waste it, and you could have kicked a field goal, and they wouldn't have had much time to go down the field. But they went down the field pretty quickly. The Cowboys were playing prevent. It was all Sam Laporta, the first two receptions. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a 14-yard reception. Then Sam Laporta again, and then Jared Goff connected with St. Brown for an 11-yard touchdown. Now, this is where things get crazy. So Skipper, supposedly, well, at least on CBS, it shows how Skipper, the lineman, he reported as eligible. But it was really a Taylor Decker that was supposed to be the one that was reporting eligible on the play. So he caught the 2-point conversion. The Lions went for 2, and they got it. And I was happy. I was like, the Cowboys didn't cover for me. I hope they lose this game. And I was like, all right, they lost. But then there was a late flag, and they said ineligible, illegal touching on Taylor Decker. So the whole thing with this is that the Lions wanted Decker to report as eligible. But according to the refs, it was Skipper that reported as eligible. So that's why they got the illegal touching. So it's the Lions are saying one thing, and the refs are saying another thing. They're saying that Decker didn't go up to them. But you clearly see a video of them going over to the refs, and you see the ref shake his head, acknowledging that I guess that he reported eligible. But you also see Skipper running over too, I believe. So it's just, I don't know. It's just a whole mess with this. And yeah, I mean, with what happened this weekend, it cost the Lions a higher seed. Now, I think they should have just kicked the field goal and went to overtime, but they didn't do that. Because then they went for it again, and then the Cowboys were offside, so that moved them up. Well, they got pushed back, then they got then Micah Parsons, I think, was offside. So then that moved them up, and then they went for it. And they had the play right. It's just it wasn't a good thrown ball, and the tight end Mitchell dropped it, I believe, right? Yeah. So it ended up being incomplete. They didn't get the onside kick, and that was it. Cowboys won the game. But this is why, people have their complaints with the refs, and this is why people don't trust, how these games are being officiated, because it's things like that. Because that was a late flag. Like, that wasn't thrown right. I don't think that was thrown right away. Because Lions were celebrating and everything, and then all of a sudden there's a flag, and it's illegal touching. So, but yeah, this is why people have their complaints with the officiating, and I think there was miscommunication, but you could also see Dan Campbell on the sideline saying "I told you," because before the game he talked to the officials about what their plan was. Like, this is what we're going to run, at certain points during the game, and they messed it up at the end. But it was a miscommunication issue. But it's a little fishy. I'm not gonna lie. Now again, I don't want to say like Jared Goff said that the fix is in, because he said that, he doesn't think the fix is in. But it's just there was some miscommunication there. But it's like, what was Decker doing over there if he wasn't if he wasn't reporting eligible? So, but yeah, that was one of the crazier games of the weekend. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, again, what we're going to talk about in the next segment, yeah, it affected what the Lions were going to do. The Lions getting a higher seed. If they get that win, but again, I think they should have just kicked the extra point. I don't know why. I mean, I guess because the Lions kind of figured, like, we're kind of locked in the spot that we're in, so might as well go for it. But, I mean, if this was like a playoff game, it felt like a playoff game. Obviously, that's not the case. You're going to kick the extra point to go to overtime. I mean, you would think. But I guess because maybe the Lions just felt like, we want to win this game right now. We kind of know where we're at in the playoffs. They're going to be a top 3 seed. But it is what it is. But it's just the officiating needs to be better. And I don't know what the NFL can do. But it's things like this, like, that make you scratch your head, and you're like, what are we doing? So but see, even my dog agrees. But yeah, it was a good game nonetheless. Again, I expected a lot more scoring in this game. But yeah, so we'll just run through the box score really quickly. So Jared Goff, 271 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Yeah, because he threw one at the end of the game. Cowboys kicked a field goal. They're up by 7. But yeah, I don't understand why they didn't just run it to waste more clock. But I don't know. Lions ran the ball for 125 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs only had 43 yards rushing. David Montgomery, 65 with a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 6 for 90 and a touchdown. Sam Laporta, 7 for 84. Jamison Williams had 2 for 69. Then on the Cowboys side of things, Dak Prescott, 26 38, 345 yards passing, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Tony Pollard, only 49 yards rushing. CeeDee Lamb, monster game. 17 targets, 13 receptions for 227 yards and a touchdown. Brandon Cooks had 5 for 60 and a touchdown. Jacob Ferguson had 4 for 33. CeeDee Lamb fumbled in the game, obviously. Jordan Lewis had a pick, and Donovan Wilson had a pick as well for the Cowboys. But yeah, both teams are now 11-5, and we'll get into the next segment when we come back from our first break and talk about what happened with the Philadelphia Eagles and them being upset by the Arizona Cardinals. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about the Cardinals upsetting the Eagles. While I was in break, I went back and rewatched the opening of the show when I got on and there's no audio. But thankfully, like I said, we fixed that issue very quickly. But I apologize for that. But yeah, let's talk about this. So obviously, talking about the Eagles' remaining schedule, I said, listen, they haven't been playing great, but you got the Giants twice, and you got the Cardinals. You should win all three of those games, and you have the 2 seed. You got the division, and you go from there. Well, they ended up losing one of those games against the Cardinals. Now, you had Jonathan Gannon, who was the defensive coordinator last year, coming back, a revenge game. Well, I don't know if I want to call it a revenge game, but because he left. But anyways, it's just needless to say, as my dad always says, the Cardinals ended up winning the game, and yeah, I don't know what to say. 35-31 was the final score of this game here, and the Eagles actually were up 21-6 at one point. At the half, and you thought okay, they're gonna dominate this game, and all they got to do is win next week and they win the division. Well, that's not the case. They let the Cardinals come back in this game. So the Cardinals actually were winning 3-0. Then the Eagles scored a touchdown to put them up 7-3. This was, I think, Julio Jones' first touchdown. Julio Jones had 2 touchdowns in this game. Yeah, it's like, what year is this? So yeah, it was 7-3 Eagles. Then the Cardinals were driving again. Kyler Murray throws a pick to Brown that was returned 99 yards for a touchdown. So that made it 14-3 Eagles. Cardinals then kicked a field goal. And then the Eagles, that was was it the second? Yeah, that was the second Julio Jones touchdown from 22 yards out. So that put them up 21-6. So yeah, I thought, okay, well, the Eagles, the game's not over yet, and the Eagles' defense isn't good, but should win this game, right? No. So the Cardinals, they open up the second half. They went 10 plays, 75 yards down the field. And Kyler Murray connected with Michael Carter, the former Jet, from 6 yards out for a touchdown to make it 21-13. Eagles punted. Then the Cardinals tied the game. Kyler connected with James Conner for a 5-yard touchdown. They got the 2-point conversion. Michael Wilson catching that. Eagles then scored a touchdown on their next drive. Jalen Hurts connected with Dallas Goedert. So that put them up 28-21. And the Cardinals tied the game again. Kyler connected with Michael Wilson again for a 5-yard touchdown. Eagles then kicked the field goal to put them up 31-28, and with really no time left on the clock, the Cardinals went right down the field, set up by a big play by Greg Deutsch, a 36-yard reception, and then James Conner from 3 yards out scored a rushing touchdown. That set up the touchdown on second and goal. It was a 2-yard touchdown. So that put them up 35-31. And then obviously they had to throw a Hail Mary at the end of the Eagles, and they lost the game. Kyler Murray went 25-31, 232 yards passing, 3 touchdowns and a pick. James Conner had a monster game, 26 carries for 128 yards and a touchdown. Greg Deutsch was their leading receiver, 82 yards. Trey McBride had 48. Michael Wilson had 35 yards receiving and a touchdown. Rondale Moore had 3 for 26. And then you go look at the Eagles side of things. Jalen Hurts, 18-23, only 167 yards passing, 3 touchdowns and a pick. DeAndre Swift had 61 yards rushing. Eagles ran the ball for 91 yards in total for the game. A.J. Brown, 4 for 53. Dallas Goedert, 5 for 47 and a touchdown. Julio Jones had 2 for 34 and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Smith actually got hurt in this game. I believe it's an ankle sprain that he suffered in this game. But yeah, it just, I mean, I don't know what to say. The Eagles had it right in front of them, and especially at home. And listen, the Giants, again, a team of almosts, and we'll talk about them later in the show. But, the Giants almost came back against them, and then you had the Cardinals. They came in, and they flat out won the game. And if the Eagles, they don't get that pick six, I mean, who knows what the score ends up being. It doesn't come down to that. But, this is a team that's really just, they're in a funk. And, a lot of people look at the head coach, Nick Sirianni. There's a lot of complaints about him. I see that on social media. You had two really good coordinators that you ended up losing in the offseason. Gannon now with the Cardinals, and then Shane Steichen with the Colts. And look what he's doing with the Colts right now. They're not running the football as well. You could see that. I mean, this team last year was just unbelievable running the ball. Mixing it up. Whether it was Hurts running it, you had Miles Sanders and Boston Scott and Gainwell. Like, you have most of the guys still there, of course. The only player that's not there is Miles Sanders, who's not doing well with the Panthers. He's the number 2 back now. So I don't know. I guess it's play calling. The defense. I mean, the defense isn't as good either. I mean, the secondary's getting burnt like crazy. It's just this team is just it's not the same as it was, from last year. And now, on top of that, they're the 5 seed now. And it looks like that's where they're going to end up. They're going to be playing the winner of the NFC South. That's what's going to end up happening. And listen, don't really have a lot of confidence in them. I don't. As many other people don't. Because this team is very beatable right now. And especially like if they got to go on the road, whether it's to Tampa, who they already beat this year, and then you also have, the Saints possibly. Might have to play them if Tampa loses to the Panthers and the Saints win, or if the Falcons win. Well, I don't know. I feel like the toughest out of the 3 is the Saints. But who knows? I mean, this team just isn't playing well. It doesn't matter. They just lost to the Cardinals. I know the Cardinals, they only got 4 wins, but, with Kyler and James Conner, I mean, they still got some good players on this team. And this team made the playoffs, what was it, 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago when the Rams won the Super Bowl. They got knocked down in the first round. It was a disappointing end to their season, but, this was a playoff team a couple of years ago. Now, they have lost a lot of pieces since then, but, at one point, this team was a playoff team. It's just, it's very different now. And with Kyler, like I said, and James Conner, and they got some good players on offense. The tight end McBride's had a great season. So that's a team that they're in rebuild mode. But you know what? If they keep the core that they got, they could be a playoff team again at some point. They're heading in the right direction. You would hope. Get back to being at least a playoff team from a couple of years ago. But we'll see, what they end up doing. But still, I don't know what to say. I mean, as a Giant fan, listen, it's nice to see. But it's just, I don't get it. I mean, the team has so much talent. A.J. Brown's your leading receiver, but, what was it? He only had 57 yards receiving? I mean, that's not going to win you games. And you know what? And you see why he was complaining earlier in the season. What was it? 53 yards, my mistake. But it's a lot of different things, like the consistency on offense, and they're not running the football as well. Defense. I think the defense is the biggest issue. I mean, they're getting beat badly. I mean, you got Tyrod Taylor last week. He's throwing these bombs to Darius Slayton for a touchdown. This past week, James Conner's running the football all over them. You let Drew Lock go, what was it, 98 yards, for the game-winning drive against them in Seattle. It's not a championship caliber team. Just isn't. I think they could at least, because they're playing the NFC South, I think they could at least go to the next round. But, you go up against Dallas or San Francisco, you're not winning. You're just not. The way they're playing. And, I don't really know what else to say. It's just, you had a soft schedule. You had a soft finish to the year. You had the Giants twice, who you always beat, and you got the Cardinals, who coming in were a 3-win team. Now, you're going to be a 5 seed. Now, again, you still have a chance, but now you play the Giants next week. That game could go either way. The Giants, I'll give them credit. They're still losing, but they're being competitive. Well, against the Saints, they got destroyed. But they almost came back against the Eagles. They made things interesting. But they more so just capitalized on the Eagles' mistakes. Cardinals, yeah, they they held the Eagles down in the second half. They were able to get back in the game. And actually the Cardinals, I think, they kicked it. They went for an onside kick. They didn't get it. So I think they kind of helped out the Eagles. But yeah, it's just who knows what's going to happen next week when they play the Giants. Because Tyrod Taylor's not playing bad since he's taken over for Tommy DeVito. And, when he came in relief for him on Christmas, he played pretty well. So, and the Giants are going to want to finish the season strong and, play spoiler. The Eagles are in the playoffs, but, it's just they really hurt themselves by losing this game. Because now they're, playing as a 5 seed and you're going to have to go on the road. You got the winner of the NFC South, which you can definitely win. But, again, they could lose to anybody the way they're playing. This is the same team that lost to the Jets and how bad the Jets' offense is. So, and they just lost to the Cardinals. So, yeah, not a good weekend for the Eagles. We'll see what happens when they play the Giants, but I guess you got to look at that as a tough game because they just they're off right now, and that's not what you want heading into the postseason. So, before we go to our second break of the show, once again, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, this is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we'll talk about teams that had good weekends, and that was the Harbaugh brothers. Both of their teams winning. Obviously, for John Harbaugh, it was you were relaxing a little bit, during the game in the second half. But for Jim, yeah, it was a nail biter all the way to the end. So we'll get into that when we come back from our second break of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about the big weekend for the Harbaugh brothers. It's a good weekend for them, of course. Obviously on Sunday, so we'll talk about John first. The Dolphins were coming to town. Last year, of course, they had that comeback win against them in Baltimore. I mean, the Ravens were up, what was it, like 35-13 or 35-14. And the Dolphins were able to come back and win that game. I think the final score, they had it airing on NFL Network. I think the final score was 42-38, I think. An insane game. So you kind of thought that was going to be the same thing here. A lot of scoring. However, the Dolphins were coming in a little banged up. I mean, and, the injuries just kept coming. You had Bradley Chubb getting hurt late in this game, and he's going to be out for the rest of the year. I think it's an ACL injury, which is just devastating. But, yeah, it's just they're getting, again, bad stuff happened to them at the wrong time with the playoffs coming up. So, and then, of course, you got a big divisional game against the Bills next week. So, yeah, but the Dolphins, they did get off to a good start in this game. They went 8 plays, 75 yards down the field. Tua connected with Cedric Wilson for an 8-yard touchdown. So that put them up 7-0, and you're like, oh, boy, here we go. Then the Ravens, they answered with a touchdown. Lamar Jackson connected with Justice Hill for a 20-yard touchdown, so that tied the game. Then the Dolphins kicked a field goal to put them up 10-7. So it was 10-7 after the first quarter. But then things started to change. So then the Ravens, they scored another touchdown. Gus Edwards from 1 yard out. That was set up by a Lamar Jackson to Odell Beckham Jr. 33-yard reception, which had to be reviewed because they didn't know if he was in bounds when he caught the ball or if he maintained possession. But then they ruled it complete, so that set it up. Then the Dolphins kicked the field goal. Ravens, another touchdown to make it 21-10 or 21-13. Lamar Jackson connected with Zay Flowers for a 75-yard touchdown. Well, yeah, that was the only play of the drive. Then Tua threw a pick. Ravens turned that into a touchdown. That was to Isaiah Likely, who, listen, with Mark Andrews being out, Likely's really stepped up. So, yeah, that put them up 28-13, and that was the score at the half. Then the Ravens, they opened up the second half with another touchdown. That was Likely's second, so that made it 35-13. Dolphins punted. Then the Ravens fumbled, and then Tua threw another pick. Ravens punted. Then the Dolphins scored a touchdown to make it 35-19. Tua connected with Devon Achane for a 1-yard touchdown. Ravens scored another touchdown. Lamar Jackson connected with Patrick Ricard, the fullback, for a 4-yard touchdown, so that made it 42-19. Dolphins turned it over on downs. Melvin Gordon scored a touchdown in this game to make it 49-19. Then the Dolphins fumbled. Ravens turned that into another touchdown. Tyler Huntley throwing a 19-yard touchdown to Kalar. If that's how you pronounce it, I apologize. So that made it 56-19, and that was the final score of the game. For the Dolphins, Tua went 22 of 38, 237 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Devon Achane, 14 carries for 107 yards. He also had a receiving touchdown. Tyreek Hill went 6 for 76. Durham Smythe was their second leading receiver. 3 for 54. Achane had 4 for 30 and a touchdown. Cedric Wilson had 2 for 27 and a touchdown. And they were without Waddle. So you're without Waddle. Like I said, Chubb gets hurt late in the game. I don't think Xavier Howard, I don't think, played in this game either. So, yeah, the Dolphins are pretty banged up. And then, of course, Lamar Jackson, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, 18 of 21, 321 yards. Passing, Gus Edwards was their leading rusher. He had 68 yards rushing on the ground for a touchdown. Justice Hill had 48 yards rushing. Zay Flowers had 3 receptions for 106 yards and a touchdown, obviously the big 75-yard touchdown. Justice Hill had 5 for 64 and a touchdown. Rashad Bateman, 4 for 54. Isaiah Likely had 2 receptions for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns. Odell Beckham Jr. had 1 for 33. Ravens just dominated this game from start to finish. And they're the 1 seed. It's gonna go through Baltimore. This is probably the best team that Lamar Jackson has played with. And we'll see if they end up resting their starters next week against the Steelers. But I know I see, like, on social media especially, that, some Ravens fans are against that because when Lamar Jackson won MVP, back in 2019, they rested their starters the final week of the regular season. Then you get to the divisional round against Ryan Tannehill and the Titans, and they ended up losing. They played pretty flat. They came out flat, and they were down by a lot, and they couldn't overcome the deficit. They ended up losing the game. So we'll see how they approach that this time around. But now people are talking about Lamar Jackson being the MVP. And listen, these last 2 weeks he's been great. But again, when you look at the stats of the quarterbacks, I mean, they're not overall that impressive. Because when we've seen, Peyton Manning win it and Rodgers and Mahomes and Brady, like when they were winning MVPs, they had really impressive stats. Here, it's like, it's not that, not to say that, guys aren't having good seasons, but they're not having, this is like, again, this is the year that you wouldn't give it to a quarterback, but it might be Lamar Jackson that ends up getting it the way he's been playing. It's really, right now this MVP award is what have you done for me lately? And right now Lamar Jackson is, he's the lead candidate for MVP at this moment. And how the team has been playing. I mean, the impressive win against the 49ers. You blow out you dominated the 49ers, but, you really blew out the Dolphins. It was close. I mean, the Dolphins went right down the field in the first drive, and you're like, all right, here we go. But after that, it was pure domination by the Ravens. So we'll see how they approach next week. But hey, they got the 1 seed, and it's gonna be they're gonna be tough to beat because right now they look like the best team in the NFL. It's between them and the Niners, but right now you'd probably put the Ravens over the Niners just because of what the Ravens were able to do to the Niners on Christmas. But those are the top 2 teams right now. And again, this is the best team that Lamar Jackson, I think, has played with. Zay Flowers has had a great rookie season. Again, Isaiah Likely has stepped up in the absence of Mark Andrews. They're still able to run the football decently. Obviously, their running back situation is always, it seems like it's always tough every year. Guys getting hurt, but, and the defense, they were without Kyle Hamilton yesterday. I think Marlon Humphrey, he got hurt as well. Banged up secondary against the Dolphins with Tyreek Hill, you thought would be an issue, but no, they're still rolling. So now they play Pittsburgh next week to finish off the year, and then the regular season, and then we'll see them in the playoffs. That was John Harbaugh. Now we go to Jim Harbaugh. So Michigan against Alabama, great game yesterday. Michigan got the win 27-20. Came down to, it had to go to overtime. So we'll run through that quickly. So we still got some time here, but so both teams punted to start the game. Then Alabama went on a 4-play, 44-yard drive down the field. 34-yard run by McLennan to make it 7-0 Alabama. Then Michigan answered with a 10-play, 75-yard drive down the field to tie the game at 7. J.J. McCarthy completed a pass to Blake Corum, the running back, for an 8-yard touchdown, so that tied the game at 7. Then both teams punted. That's how the first quarter ended. Then Michigan went up 13-7. They missed the extra point. Actually, no, they went for 2. My mistake. And J.J. McCarthy completed a pass to Morris for a 38-yard touchdown. So that made it 13-7. And like I said, they actually no. What was it? Well, it says a 2-point conversion, but isn't that because I think the I don't know. Whatever. Needless to say, 13-7. Because I know at one point there was a botched extra point. I don't know if that might have been the second game. But yeah, so it was 13-7. Then Alabama answered with a field goal. So that made it 13-10, and that's how it was at the half. Then both teams exchanged punts twice in the third quarter. Alabama did score a touchdown to make it 17-13. McLennan had a 3-yard touchdown. So yeah, 17-13. Then Alabama fumbled late in the fourth quarter, and you thought Michigan could capitalize on that, but they ended up missing the field goal. Then Alabama kicked the field goal, 20-13, and you thought, yeah, it might be Alabama's day again. And then J.J. McCarthy and that offense went down the field, 8 plays, 75 yards to tie the game at 20. and he connected with Wilson for a 4-yard touchdown. So then the game ended up going into overtime. Michigan scored on their first possession of overtime. Blake Corum scored a 17-yard touchdown. Alabama turned it over on downs. But they were really close. I mean, they were right there. Milroe, he had a lot of rushing attempts in this game, carries in this game, 21 carries for 63 yards. But yeah, I mean, the Michigan defense pretty much just blew up the play on that final play, and that was it. Michigan ends up winning 27-20, and they advance to the national championship. So looking at the stats for this game, so Jalen Milroe, he went 16-23, 116 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Like I said, he had 63 yards rushing. Jason McClellan had 14 carries for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns. The leading receiver was Isaiah Bond. He had 4 for 47. And then on the Michigan side of things, J.J. McCarthy went 17-27, 221 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Blake Corum, 19 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown. Roman Wilson, 4 for 73 and a touchdown. Tyler Morris, 2 for 45 and a touchdown. And Blake Corum also in the receiving game, 2 for 35 and a touchdown. But it was a great game. It really was. Michigan's now 14-0. Again, they advanced to the national championship. And, I mean, obviously a lot of controversy surrounding them this year with the whole cheating scandal. And I saw, like, the clip of them asking the media asking Nick Saban about it. And he answered it the best way he could. It was a great game. It was a great game. And, now we'll see, if they can get that national championship. I mean, right now, obviously, they are looked at as the best team right now in the nation. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it was this segment, big weekend for the Harbaugh brothers. I mean, you got the Ravens with the 1 seed, and now you got Michigan going to the national championship. And we'll see if John Harbaugh can get the Ravens back to the Super Bowl. Because obviously the last time the Ravens were in the Super Bowl, it was against Jim Harbaugh when he was the coach of the 49ers. So which was a great Super Bowl. Which is going to be 12 years old, that Super Bowl, which is 11 years old. Because technically it happened in 2013. It was the 2012-2013 season. But yeah, 11 years old. I mean, yeah, that was again, that's just how fast time flies here. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much it when talking about the Harbaugh brothers. Like I said, big weekend for them. Let me know what you guys think about both of those games, about the Ravens, about Michigan. So that's this topic here. So when we come back, we'll recap the rest of the games. We'll go through them pretty quickly because there's a bunch of them, of course, as well as the other college football playoff game between Washington and Texas. So we'll get into that as well. And, that'll pretty much be it for the show today. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're just going to run through the remaining games that I didn't get to from this weekend. I'm going to try not to spend too much time on each of them just because, there's a lot to run through. But let's go through it. So the Giants and the Rams will start off with. Rams winning 26-25. I mean, again, the Giants are the team of almosts. Like, they almost won this game. If this would have happened, there are a bunch of almost and ifs, with this team. But you know what? They were competitive here. They actually ran back a kick return, which I was surprised because that never happens with the Giants. Gunnar Olszewski ran that back. And that set up the 2-point conversion because they're like, we're not playing for anything, so might as well just do it. And Tyrod Taylor could have ran it in, but he had a wide open Saquon Barkley, and it just incomplete. And it should have been completed, but it wasn't. And then you had Mason Crosby attempting to kick I think it was a 54 or 51-yard field goal, and at the end, and they didn't make it, and they ended up losing the game. And I'll be honest, I want the Rams to make the playoffs, and the fact that the Giants had a chance to hurt their chances, that would have stunk, really, because I want to see the Rams in it. They deserve to make it. And they're in a good spot right now, but they got the 49ers coming up, so we'll see. Obviously we talked about the Ravens game. The Patriots-Bills game was interesting because, Bailey Zappi threw 3 interceptions in this game. The Bills were up. Well, first of all, the Patriots ran back, the kick return to start off the game. Jalen Reagor, 98-yard kickoff return. Then the Bills just looked like the Bills were just going to put up 40 on them. It was 20-7 at one point. Zappi just kept throwing interceptions. But no, the Patriots kept it close. And they only ended up losing 27-21. But, yeah, I mean, it just... I at least won that game in the spread pool. But, yeah, so the Bills are 10-6, and now they play the Dolphins next. And, if they win that game, they win the AFC East, so that's a huge game. And, again, you look at, the Dolphins and how banged up they are. The Bills could definitely this is definitely going to be an easier game for the Bills. It's still going to be tough, but with the Dolphins not at full strength and even Tyreek Hill being banged up still, we'll see what happens. The Bears winning 37-17 over the Falcons. You had We Want Fields chants at Soldier Field. Listen, the Bears, since Fields has come back, the defense is playing good. Fields has been, playing okay. He was good again against the Falcons. We'll see. The Bears, they could do a lot of different things because they have a lot. I mean, they have the number 1 overall pick right now. I think you keep Fields and you build around him. You draft Marvin Harrison Jr. You fix the offensive line. This team could be good. And Khalil Herbert being back, he's been running the football well. Roshan Johnson the rookie hasn't been bad. I don't know. This team could be good. I mean, and if they beat the Packers, you finish 8-9, and it looked like they were going to be, they were going to have a terrible record this year. But you know what? They definitely are showing you something going into next year. And I think Matt Eberflus is coming back, so we'll see. But they definitely are one good draft and one good free agency away from maybe being a playoff team for next year. If they didn't start off the season so horribly, maybe they'd be in that conversation. But then you have the Texans all over the Titans, 26-3. C.J. Stroud being back, that's huge. They play the Colts on Saturday. We'll obviously talk about that later in the week. Colts winning 23-20 over the. I don't really have much to say about the Texans Titans game. It really wasn't much of a game. Then you got the Colts and the Raiders. Colts winning 23-20. Raiders backdoor cover really hurt me in the spread pool. They went for the touchdown on 4th and goal. They converted it. Aiden O'Connell hitting Devontae Adams for that touchdown. But yeah, the Colts are 9-7, and yeah, it's that game is going to be huge on Saturday night between them and the Texans. So we'll see how that goes. But and the Raiders, we'll see what they end up doing at the head with their head coach situation. If they bring back Antonio Pierce or if they go look elsewhere. The Jaguars, they had no Trevor Lawrence in the game against the Panthers. Didn't really matter. They won 26-0. I mean, the Panthers, you put up 30 points against the Packers, and they couldn't get anything going on offense against the Jags. I mean, they were at times they had chances, but they with DJ Chark. I mean, there was a couple they had a chance to, be first and goal like the 2 or the 1, with the great catch by DJ Chark, but they reversed the call, so then that knocked him back. And, they just couldn't get anything going. And Bryce Young, you saw him throwing the tablet down on the ground on the sideline. It's been a rough year for him. So hopefully next year, the Panthers, they can, surround him with some more talent, because it's been a rough rookie season for him. You had the Saints beating the Buccaneers 23-13. Saints dominated this game. The Bucs did make it a little interesting towards the end there, but it was too little too late. Now it's set up where, the Bucs, if they lose and the Saints win the South. Or if the Bucs lose and the Falcons win, then the Falcons win the South. So, we're talking about how Baker Mayfield's been playing great lately, and all it took was one game, and now it's like, well, we're back to who's going to win this division. Because I'll be honest, I do not feel confident that the Bucs are going to beat the Panthers. I'm just not. The first game that they played, it was only a 3-point game. So, and I could definitely see the Bucs losing this game next week. I hope they don't, because I want to see Baker Mayfield in the playoffs. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. The Niners, they beat the Commanders 27-10. Christian McCaffrey had a calf injury in this game, but it was minor. But you know what? They figured, listen, we pretty much got the 1 seed locked up. Especially with the Eagles losing to the Cardinals, and they actually showed a video of Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle watching it on someone's phone of James Conner scoring the touchdown, and then they were watching it in the locker room when Hurts threw the Hail Mary and it got intercepted. But yeah, they got the 1 seed, and we'll see what they're going to do next week if they rest their starters, because the Rams need that game next week because they play the Rams. The Rams really need that game. So, then you had the Broncos and Chargers. Jared Stidham's first start as a Broncos starter. I mean, the final score was 16-9. Chargers almost beat the Bills last week. Couldn't get anything going on offense here. They had no Joshua Palmer in this game, no Keenan Allen again. And, yeah, the offense just, again, couldn't get anything going. But Stidham, the big play of the game was Stidham connecting with Lil Jordan Humphrey for that big touchdown. That was a 54-yard touchdown. I don't know what the Chargers were doing on defense, but they just could not tackle him. But, yeah, Broncos improved to 8-8. I mean, they're out of the playoffs. If they just didn't lose to the Patriots, they'd still be in it. But that was a killer loss there. Russell Wilson was the backup. But yeah, Broncos get the win, and listen, you play the Raiders next week, you get a win, finish 9-8, go into the offseason, and we'll see what they do. Because Russell Wilson will not be a part of this team going forward. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on in the offseason. Chiefs getting back to their winning ways, winning 25-17. So the funny thing with this game, all right, so I lose in the semifinals in my fantasy playoffs, in my top league, right? The league I care about the most. Because the Bengals defense gets, and oddly enough, it involves two things with these two teams. So yeah, I started the Bengals defense. They got me -1 points. And Harrison Butker got me 1 point last week. Now, the Chiefs only scored 1 touchdown in this game. They won 25-17. Bengals actually were up 17-7. The only touchdown was Mahomes connecting with Isaiah Pacheco for an 8-yard touchdown. But yeah, so then Harrison Butker proceeds to score the rest of their points. Kicks a 54-yarder, 43-yarder, so that's 2 field goals, 3 field goals, 4 field goals, 5 field goals. 5 field goals in this game he kicks. He ends up getting 24 points in fantasy. Like, you could have did that last week. Because, if I went last week, I would have won the championship. But again, it's a big if. It's always what could have been if. It's just whatever. It's just I don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah, Chiefs get back to their winning ways. They clinch the AFC West once again. Again, still don't look right, but we'll see what happens come playoff time. Then you got the Steelers. Mike Tomlin clinches another winning season. They improved to 9-7, 30-23 win over the Seahawks. Mason Rudolph, 274 yards passing, Steelers ran the ball for over 200 yards. Najee Harris, 27 carries, 122 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Was running the ball hard. I mean, touchdown runs. I mean, he got dragged into the end zone. And then the other one, he was able to stay on his feet and dive across the plane for a touchdown. Jalen Warren also had a rushing touchdown in this game. George Pickens, 7 receptions for 131 yards. So nice encore performance for him. Geno Smith, 290 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Kenneth Walker was their leading rusher, 53 yards and a touchdown. DK Metcalf had 5 for 106. So, yeah, Seahawks are 8-8. Still got a chance at the playoffs, need some help. They play the Cardinals next week. The Steelers, they play most likely the Ravens backups, but we'll see. But, yeah, they're 9-7 in another winning season for Mike Tomlin. And then finally, Packers winning 33-10 over the Vikings. The Vikings had Jaron Hall start this game, and it just did not pay off. Threw an interception. They put in Nick Mullins, but it was too little too late. Packers played a great game. Their defense was solid. Jordan Love was great. Rushing touchdown in this game, 256 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Just really picked it up since that rough stretch. Bo Melton was their leading receiver. 6 receptions for 105 yards and a touchdown. Jaden Reed left the game with an injury. He had 6 receptions for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. But Packers, winning, you're in. So we'll see if they can get in. But, yeah, I mean, Jordan Love looks good. And, they're playing against the Bears next week in Lambeau. Winning, you're in against a divisional opponent that has nothing to play for. And if you lose, Seattle could get into the playoffs. Where have we seen that before? Oh, yeah, that's right. Last year when they played the Lions, when the Lions had nothing to play for and the Lions beat them. So we should be a little nervous about this game, especially with how the Bears are playing. So, but yeah, that's pretty much that is pretty much every game, right? Yeah, I ran through pretty much all of them. So now we'll get into the college game, the rest of the college games from yesterday. So you had LSU winning 35-31 over Wisconsin. Oregon, Bo Nix's final game, 45-6 over Liberty. He had 5 touchdowns in the game, 363 yards passing. Tennessee was all over Iowa, 35-0. Of course, we talked about Alabama, Michigan. And then you had the other college football playoff game, Washington and Texas. Washington winning 37-31. Michael Penix Jr., 29-38, 430 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Quinn Ewers had if that's how you pronounce it, 24-43, 318 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. But yeah, this was a nail biter at the end because Washington was up by 2 scores, and then in the fourth quarter, they scored a touchdown. Washington kicked a field goal, make it 37-28. Then Texas kicked a field goal to make it 37-31. Washington punted. Texas got the ball back, and they were right there. But they were able to get into the red zone, but they could not get the touchdown, and that made it. And that was the final score, 37-31. And it's going to be Washington against Michigan, so we'll see how that goes. Obviously, people are, it's going to be Michigan favored in this game. But I did get a comment on one of my shorts because I'm not a college football expert. I'm not. Okay, the NFL is, I'll be honest, the NFL is what I'm more knowledgeable with. But you know what? I'm just making picks for these games. I'm not an expert. Everybody's got an opinion. So for one of the shorts, I said I'm taking Michigan, and I took Washington. Well, I took Michigan, like I did with the spread. So like Washington was like the 4-point underdog. So I took Washington with the points, and I took Michigan. And someone commented, yeah, you're probably going to go 0-2, 1-1 at best. And you're new to this. And what ended up happening? I went 2-0. Now, again, I'm not going to get ahead of myself and say I'm a genius when it comes to picking college games, but listen, I'll take the 2-0. So, so now we got Washington, Michigan. That's your national championship matchup, so obviously we'll talk about that when we get closer to it. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the show for today. I thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so make sure to tune in for that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So, as always, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.